What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be showing you how to upgrade your differential bushings. Now, why would you want to upgrade your differential bushings? Basically, the Miata, the engine, the transmission, and the differential are all one unit connected together, and they're only mounted in 4 places. 2 mounts on the engine and 2 mounts on the differential. Some bad things happen when that whole powertrain starts to rock back and forth. One thing is some of the torque that your engine is generating is going into twisting up that engine rather than propelling the car forward, so you're wasting power, you're not getting as much power to the ground. The other thing, possibly even worse, is say you're in 2nd gear, full throttle, just getting ready for 3rd gear, the engine's all twisted up, you get the clutch in, there's no more power applied to the drivetrain, whole transmission starts rocking back. As you're going for 3rd gear, it's not there, so you start missing shifts. And of course, these problems are greatly accentuated when you're creating over double the factory horsepower and torque. So I'm only going to be upgrading the differential bushings today. I really like to just perform one modification at a time so I can take the car out and feel what that specific modification has done rather than doing multiple things at the same time. So this is a set of GarageStar Delrin diff bushings, and they're $60 at garagestar.com. I'll have a direct link to the product in my description. They'll fit any Miata 1990 to 2005, and the install today will be basically identical to any Miata in that year range. I'll also be doing a short review at the end of the video as far as what performance difference I can notice, as well as any change in noise, vibration, or harshness. So my car is a 1992 and it has the differential from a 2002 Miata. And I'm sure your Torsen swap questions are brewing right now, so I'll go ahead and answer the most common question I get. What do I need to swap a 1.8 liter differential into my 1.6 car? All you need is the differential itself, the axles, the drive shaft, and the drive shaft bolts. Other than that, it just fits, it just bolts right up. Before I get started on the install, here's a little bit of footage of that drivetrain rocking I was talking about. First thing you want to do is jack the car up and remove the rear wheels, and then drain your diff fluid by removing the lower bolt. So this is your fill bolt and this is your drain bolt. Next thing you got to do is drop your exhaust. This step is going to vary a lot depending on what kind of exhaust you have on your car. You basically just have to unbolt all your flanges and then undo all the mounts and drop your exhaust to the ground. The next thing we have to take care of is moving the power plant frame, or the PPF, out of the way. And what I do is remove these 2 bolts here that are on the differential, and then up at the front there's some more bolts, 3 more you see there. I remove 2 of them and leave the front one in, so it'll hold the PPF on the car, but you'll be able to move it out of the way enough to lower the differential. You also got to pop this little sleeve out once you remove the bolts. You can just use a flathead to get in there and kind of work it out slowly. There's a couple of those little inserts up on top as well, so how you get those out is just thread one of the bolts in a little bit. Just tap it out. This is what the inserts in the top of the PPF look like. You basically smack those bolts upwards until these pop free. There's 2 of them, so you got to do it to both bolts, and then your PPF will be completely freed up. Next up, you're going to remove your drive shaft bolts. You might have to put the car in neutral, release the e-brake, and spin the drive shaft around to get access to some of those things. Once you remove the drive shaft bolts, take the drive shaft out. Just slides out of the transmission. Don't need to unbolt anything on that end. If your car has 1-piece axles, you will need to remove the axles from the differential. Pops out usually somewhat easily. Get your 2 flatheads in there, just like that. So this is where the procedure might be a little bit different depending on the year of your car. If you have a car with 2-piece axles, you won't even have to pop them out like I did in the previous step. You can just unbolt them from the flanges, just like the drive shaft. What I like to do is remove the top bolt from the hub and pivot the hub downwards, and that will allow me to completely remove the axle from the diff, so when I'm lowering it, I don't really have to fiddle with trying to get the axles out at the same time. So just removing that bolt alone will allow you to swing this down and pull the axle out of the diff. So now you can see I can swing this down. I did also have to loosen this bottom bolt here so the hub could easily swing down. Now we have these support plates here, which are just two 12mm nuts. Remove those nuts all the way, and then just crack loose the larger center nut there. Don't remove those yet. Throw your floor jack under the diff, and you're gonna raise it just until you're touching the diff. Then you're gonna remove those two large 17mm nuts that we just loosened earlier. Once you remove these, your diff is free, and it's time to lower it down. There are several different ways to do this. One way is to light the thing on fire and melt it out and then hammer the sleeve out. As much as I like to light things on fire, I don't know if my neighbors have much of an appreciation for the smell of burning rubber, so I'm going to show you a different technique. You're going to take a drill and punch a couple holes throughout this rubber part of the bushing and kind of work the bit around inside the bushing, and eventually you'll be able to just push this center sleeve right out. There you go, there's your centerpiece. So this is going to be the most difficult part of the procedure, and what we have to do is get this rusty sleeve pushed out that way. From the factory, the sleeve is split here and here, so that's going to help us get it out. And what I've found helpful is basically take your screwdriver and start prying right at these splits, and just slowly start working the metal in farther and farther. And then if you look at it on this side, you have this metal lip here. You can also use this lip, get your flathead on it this way and hit it on the top and try to get this thing persuaded, get it started. By the time it's ready to come out, it's probably going to look something like that. You'll probably be completely out of breath, feel like you have a broken back and just been in a fist fight. If you're lucky, maybe even a broken screwdriver, but all in the name of speed, right? Bingo. The bushing area is probably going to be a little bit marred up, so you could just take some 180 grit or so sandpaper and just kind of clean up the edges until everything is smooth. So now it's time for the fun part. Take your nice Garage Star Delrin diff bushing, throw some nice white grease on it, grease up your diff, set your bushing in as square as you can get it, give it a couple little taps to square it up, and then just whack it into place. When it's finally in, the tone will change a little bit. That's it. Now we're just going to put everything back together in the exact reverse order, so let's go through it real quick. Don't want to forget to fill your diff. This is the fill bolt, and all you have to do to get it to the proper level is keep filling through this hole until it starts to spill out. Then go ahead and put the bolt back in. You want to make sure the differential is as level as possible when you're filling it. As you're lifting the differential back up into place, you'll be able to get those axles in. As you get it higher, you'll have to line it up with the main stud on each side of the subframe. Once it's lined up with those studs, go ahead and jack it all the way up into place. Next, you just put on these retaining plates and reinstall the two 12mm bolts and then the big 17mm nut in the center. Bolt your hubs back up. After you tighten the hubs up, you can pop your axles back into place. Reinstall the PPF bolts, all of them, same way they came out. Final steps, put the drive shaft back in the way it came out, exhaust, throw on your wheels, and you're gonna be ready for a test drive. So in my normal fashion, I finished up in complete darkness last night, but I took the car for a spin this morning, and initial impressions, a little bit of improved crispness from the drivetrain, especially between shifts. It's not gonna make a monumental difference, certainly not as big as upgrading your engine mounts, but I could definitely tell a difference. And the good thing about these is I barely noticed any change in noise. There's a little bit more engine noise right between 3,000 and 3,500, and maybe just a little bit at idle, but that's gonna depend heavily on what kind of exhaust you have on your car as well. So it's one of those parts that is gonna make a small, noticeable difference, but it doesn't really have any drawbacks. So that's all I got for you this time, guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the videos. Check out my Instagram at TheCarPassionChannel. And I want to tell you about one of my favorite Instagrams that I follow, at Miata Crew. Those guys are always posting top-notch photos and top-notch Miatas. Check them out as well. Until next time, peace. Might even have a broken screwdriver if you're lucky. But all in it, been in a fist fight, and if you're lucky, oh my god, I can't talk. You'll probably even be completely out of breath. Oh, completely out of breaths. Oh no.